Sometimes the most powerful moments in life happen when we least expect them. Picture this: a man who owns everything money can buy, sitting in an ordinary diner with his daughter who sees the world differently than everyone else. He's used to people staring, whispering, judging. He's built walls around his heart to protect both himself and his child from a world that doesn't always understand. But then, something extraordinary happens. A stranger with a warm smile and gentle hands shows his daughter the kind of kindness that money can't purchase. In that moment, everything he thought he knew about human nature begins to crumble. This isn't just a story about wealth meeting poverty or about autism and acceptance. This is about the moment when one person's simple act of compassion becomes the spark that lights up two very different lives forever. What happens when a billionaire discovers that the most valuable thing in the world isn't something you can buy, but something you can only give? What happens when a hardworking waitress realizes that her small gesture of kindness has the power to change not just one life, but an entire family's destiny? This is that story. A story about unexpected connections, second chances, and the beautiful truth that sometimes the people who need saving end up being the ones who do the saving instead. Marcus Wellington adjusted his expensive watch as he sat in the worn leather booth of Miller's Diner, a place he never imagined he would find himself. The irony wasn't lost on him that a man worth $12 billion was sitting in a restaurant where the most expensive item on the menu cost $14. But here he was, and for good reason. His 7-year-old daughter Emma sat across from him, her fingers dancing through the air in patterns only she could understand. Her beautiful brown eyes were focused on the sugar packets she had arranged in perfect rows across the table. Marcus had learned long ago not to disturb these arrangements. Emma had autism, and these small rituals brought her comfort in a world that often felt overwhelming. The morning had started like any other. Marcus had been in his corner office on the 42nd floor of Wellington Industries, reviewing quarterly reports and preparing for a board meeting that would determine the future of a $100 million merger. His assistant had knocked and informed him that Emma's special needs teacher had called. There had been an incident at school, she had explained. Emma had become overwhelmed during a fire drill and had hidden under her desk for 3 hours, refusing to come out even after the drill was over. The school had suggested Marcus come pick her up early. He could have sent the nanny or one of his staff members, but something in his gut told him he needed to go himself. Emma rarely had these kinds of episodes anymore, and when she did, she usually responded better to him than anyone else. The drive from his office to Emma's private school had taken 45 minutes through Seattle's downtown traffic. When he arrived, he found his daughter sitting quietly in the principal's office, still wearing her school uniform, but with her shoes off and her socks pulled up to her knees. She had been humming softly to herself, a song he recognized as one her music therapist had been working on with her. "Daddy," she had said when she saw him, her voice barely above a whisper. The loud noise hurt my ears, and everyone was moving too fast. Marcus had knelt down to her level, something his own father had never done for him. "I know, sweetheart. Sometimes the world gets a little too loud, doesn't it?" Emma had nodded and had climbed into his arms. She rarely initiated physical contact, so when she did, Marcus treasured every moment. "Can we go somewhere quiet?" she had asked. That question had led them here, to Miller's Diner, a small family restaurant Emma had noticed during one of their weekend drives. She had pointed it out several times, always commenting on the bright yellow sign and the flowers in the window boxes. Marcus had always assumed she was simply observing, as she often did. But today when she asked for somewhere quiet, this was the place she had specifically requested. The diner was nearly empty at 2 in the afternoon. The lunch crowd had cleared out, and the dinner rush wouldn't start for another few hours. It was exactly the kind of peaceful environment Emma needed. Marcus had expected to order some simple food, let Emma calm down, and then head home where her tutor would be waiting to help her with the schoolwork she had missed. He hadn't expected to witness what would become the most important moment of his daughter's young life. Emma was carefully stacking sugar packets when a young woman approached their table. She appeared to be in her mid-20s, with dark skin that seemed to glow under the diner's fluorescent lights, and kind eyes that immediately put Marcus at ease. Her name tag read Keisha, and Unlike most service workers who became visibly nervous around Marcus once they recognized him from business magazines or news reports, Keisha seemed genuinely focused on Emma. "Hi there, beautiful," Keisha said softly, crouching down so she was at Emma's eye level. "I love how you arranged those sugar packets. They look like little white dominoes all lined up perfectly." Emma looked up from her arrangement, studying Keisha's face with the intense curiosity she reserved for people who truly interested her. Most adults either talked to Marcus about Emma as if she wasn't there, or they spoke to Emma in the overly cheerful voice people often used with children they assumed couldn't understand them. Keisha did neither. "Would you like to see the menu, or would you prefer if I told you about some of the quieter foods we have?" Keisha asked Emma directly. Marcus was surprised by the question. Quieter foods? He had never heard anyone describe food that way, but somehow it made perfect sense. Emma often struggled with foods that were too crunchy or made too much noise when she chewed them. "I like quiet foods," Emma said, her voice still soft but more engaged than she had been all day. "And warm foods, but not too warm." "I know exactly what you mean," Keisha replied with a genuine smile. "My little cousin is the same way. He likes foods that feel gentle in his mouth. Would you like some nice warm soup? We have tomato soup that's smooth and creamy, and I can make sure it's just the right temperature." Emma nodded enthusiastically. It was the first time all day that Marcus had seen her show genuine interest in anything. "And for you, sir?" Keisha asked, turning to Marcus with the same warmth she had shown Emma. "Coffee, black, and whatever you recommend," Marcus replied. He was still processing the interaction he had just witnessed. In 30 seconds, this young woman had connected with his daughter in a way that most people never managed to achieve. As Keisha walked away to place their order, Marcus watched Emma return to her sugar packet arrangement, but now she was humming again. The tune was different this time, happier somehow. "Daddy," Emma said without looking up from her packets. "She has a nice voice. It doesn't hurt my ears like some voices do." Marcus nodded, understanding exactly what his daughter meant. Emma was highly sensitive to tone and inflection. She could detect insincerity or impatience in people's voices long before Marcus could. If she said Keisha had a nice voice, it meant she genuinely trusted her. When Keisha returned with their order, she did something that surprised Marcus even more than her initial interaction with Emma. Instead of simply setting down the bowl of soup and walking away, she sat down in the booth next to Emma. "Do you mind if I sit here for just a minute?" she asked Emma. "I want to make sure your soup is exactly the right temperature." Emma looked up at her and nodded. Keisha dipped the spoon into the soup, blew on it gently, and then held it out to Emma. "Try this, and tell me if it needs to be cooler." Emma tasted the soup carefully and smiled. "It's perfect," she said. "Good," Keisha replied. "Now, I noticed you like organizing things. Would you like me to show you how I organize the napkin dispensers? I have a special way of doing it that makes everything look just right." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus sat in amazement as Keisha patiently showed Emma different ways to organize objects. She taught her how to fold napkins into perfect triangles, how to arrange condiment bottles by height and color, and how to stack plates in a way that created pleasing patterns. What struck Marcus most was how natural the interaction seemed. Keisha wasn't performing or putting on an act for his benefit. She seemed genuinely interested in Emma's perspective and genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. When other customers entered the diner, Keisha would excuse herself to serve them, but she always returned to check on Emma and continue their activities. At one point, an older man at the counter began complaining loudly about the slow service, his voice carrying across the small restaurant. Marcus saw Emma's shoulders tense, and her hands begin to flutter, sure signs that she was becoming overwhelmed by the noise and negative energy. Without hesitation, Keisha moved to position herself between Emma and the angry customer, speaking in low, calming tones to Emma while simultaneously gesturing for another server to handle the difficult customer. She began humming the same tune Emma had been humming earlier, and gradually, Emma's hands stopped fluttering and her shoulders relaxed. "How did you know to do that?" Marcus asked when Keisha returned to their table. "My little cousin has autism too," Keisha explained simply. "I've learned that sometimes the world gets a little too overwhelming for people who process things differently. Everyone deserves to feel safe and comfortable, especially kids." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. In his world, people were constantly trying to manage Emma's autism, fix it, work around it, or minimize its impact on others. He had never encountered someone who simply accepted it as part of who she was and adapted their behavior accordingly without making it seem like a burden or an inconvenience. As they prepared to leave, Emma surprised everyone, including Marcus, by asking if she could hug Keisha goodbye. Emma rarely initiated physical contact with strangers, and when she did, it meant she felt truly safe and connected with that person. Keisha accepted the hug with the same natural grace she had shown throughout their entire visit. "It was so nice to meet you, Emma," she said. "I hope you come back and visit me again soon." "Can we come back tomorrow?" Emma asked her father as they walked to their car. Marcus looked back at the small diner with its cheerful yellow sign and realized that this unplanned visit had given his daughter something he had been searching for her entire life, a place where she felt completely accepted and understood. The next morning arrived with Seattle's typical gray drizzle, but Marcus found himself looking forward to the day in a way he hadn't experienced in months. Emma had woken up earlier than usual, already dressed in her favorite blue dress, and sitting by her bedroom window with her collection of small toy cars arranged in precise lines along the windowsill. "Are we going to see Keisha today?" she asked when Marcus appeared in her doorway with his morning coffee. Marcus had been expecting this question. Emma's routine was sacred to her, and any deviation from it usually required careful planning and preparation. Yet here she was, eagerly anticipating a return to a place they had visited only once, to see a person she had met for less than an hour. "Would you like to go back to Miller's Diner for lunch?" he asked. Emma nodded enthusiastically, a reaction that both warmed Marcus's heart and concerned him slightly. He didn't want his daughter to be disappointed if their second visit didn't live up to the magic of the first one. Marcus spent the morning trying to focus on work, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the young waitress who had so effortlessly connected with Emma. He found himself curious about her life, her background, and what had given her such insight into working with children who had special needs. By 11:30, Marcus and Emma were back in the familiar booth at Miller's Diner. The lunch crowd was just beginning to trickle in, and Marcus could see Keisha moving efficiently between tables, taking orders and delivering food with the same warm smile she had shown them the day before. When she spotted Emma, her face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Well, look who came back to visit me," she said, approaching their table with a grace that seemed to come naturally to her. "How are you doing today, Miss Emma?" Emma beamed at being addressed so formally and respectfully. "I'm good. I brought something to show you." From her small backpack, Emma pulled out a drawing she had made the night before. It showed two figures sitting at a table with what appeared to be soup bowls and carefully organized sugar packets. One figure had long dark hair and kind eyes, while the other was smaller with brown hair pulled back in ponytails. "This is you and me yesterday," Emma explained, holding up the drawing for Keisha to see. Keisha studied the picture with the same focused attention she had given Emma's sugar packet arrangements. "This is beautiful, Emma. Look how carefully you drew everything. You even remembered the flowers in the window boxes. May I keep this picture?" Emma nodded eagerly. Marcus watched in amazement as Keisha walked over to the small bulletin board behind the counter and pinned Emma's drawing right in the center, removing what appeared to be a schedule to make room for it. "There," Keisha said, returning to their table. "Now everyone who comes into the diner can see what a talented artist you are." Over the course of their meal, Marcus observed Keisha more carefully than he had the day before. She worked with a efficiency that spoke of years of experience in restaurant service. But, more than that, she seemed to genuinely care about every customer who walked through the door. She remembered details about regular customers, asked about their families, and somehow managed to make each person feel like they were the most important person in the room. With Emma, however, there was something special. Keisha seemed to instinctively understand Emma's needs and preferences. When Emma accidentally spilled some soup on the table, instead of rushing to clean it up in a way that might embarrass her, Keisha casually grabbed a napkin and showed Emma how to clean it up herself, turning the potential source of anxiety into a learning opportunity. "My mama always taught me that spills happen to everyone," Keisha said matter-of-factly. "The important thing is knowing how to handle them with grace." As Marcus sipped his coffee and watched this interaction, he found himself wanting to know more about the woman who was showing his daughter such kindness. During a brief lull when Emma was focused on her drawing, he decided to ask a few gentle questions. "Have you worked here long?" he asked Keisha when she stopped by to refill his coffee. "About 3 years," she replied. "Started here when I was 22, right after I finished my associate's degree." "What did you study?" "Early childhood development with a focus on special education," Keisha said, and suddenly, everything clicked into place for Marcus. "I'm working here while I save up for my bachelor's degree. The plan is to eventually become a special education teacher." Marcus felt a surge of respect for this young woman who was working multiple jobs to fund her education while somehow maintaining such a positive attitude and genuine care for others. "That's admirable," he said. "The world needs more teachers who understand children like Emma." Keisha glanced over at Emma, who was now showing her drawing to an elderly couple at the next table. "Emma's special," she said softly. "She sees the world in such a unique way. Yesterday, while we were organizing those napkins, she showed me patterns I had never noticed before. She has a gift." The comment hit Marcus deeply. So many people focused on Emma's challenges, her differences, the way she struggled to fit into a neurotypical world. Few people recognized the unique strengths and perspectives that came with her autism. "Not many people see it that way," Marcus admitted. "Then, they're not looking hard enough," Keisha replied with conviction. "Some of the smartest, most creative people I know think differently than everyone else. The world would be a boring place if we all processed things exactly the same way." As they prepared to leave for the second time, Emma once again asked Keisha for a hug, but this time she also asked a question that surprised both adults. "Keisha, do you have a little cousin who comes here sometimes?" "Sometimes he does," Keisha replied. "His name is Jamal, and he's about your age." "Why do you ask?" "Maybe someday I could meet him," Emma said shyly. "I don't have very many friends who understand things the way I do." Marcus felt his heart constrict at his daughter's honest admission. Despite all of his efforts to provide Emma with the best education, therapy, and opportunities money could buy, she still struggled with the basic human need for friendship and connection. "I think Jamal would really like to meet you too," Keisha said warmly. "He loves to draw pictures and organize things, just like you do." As they walked to their car, Marcus found himself making a decision that would have seemed impossible just 2 days earlier. "Emma," he said, "how would you feel about coming here for lunch every day this week?" Emma stopped walking and looked up at her father with wide, hopeful eyes. "Really? Every day?" "Every day," Marcus confirmed, and he realized that he was looking forward to it as much as she was. That evening, Marcus found himself doing something he rarely did, researching local colleges and their special education programs. He discovered that the university where Keisha was planning to complete her bachelor's degree was one of the most respected programs in the state, but it was also one of the most expensive. He spent hours reading about the challenges facing students who worked their way through college, particularly those pursuing careers in education. The statistics were sobering. Many talented potential teachers never completed their degrees due to financial constraints, and those who did often graduated with crushing debt that made it difficult to pursue careers in public education. Marcus thought about Keisha's gentle patience with Emma, her natural teaching instincts, and her obvious passion for working with children who had special needs. The world needed more teachers like her, and yet the current system made it incredibly difficult for someone in her situation to achieve that goal. As he tucked Emma into bed that night, she said something that crystallized his thoughts. "Daddy, I think Keisha is going to be a really good teacher. She already taught me so many things, and she wasn't even trying to be my teacher." Marcus kissed his daughter goodnight and realized that Emma was absolutely right. Keisha was already a teacher in every way that mattered. She just needed the opportunity to make it official. That night, Marcus lay awake thinking about the profound impact one person could have on another's life through simple acts of kindness and understanding. He thought about his own childhood, growing up with wealth and privilege but little warmth or genuine connection. His father had been a successful businessman, but an absent parent, more interested in building an empire than building a relationship with his son. Marcus had sworn he would be different with Emma, and in many ways he had been. He was present in her life, involved in her care, and deeply committed to her well-being. But Watching Keisha interact with Emma had shown him something he had been missing. The power of seeing his daughter not as someone who needed to be fixed or managed, but as someone who had unique gifts to be celebrated and nurtured. The next morning, Marcus found himself looking forward to by the end of their first week of daily visits to Miller's Diner. Marcus had learned more about Keisha than he had about most people he had known for years. Not because he had pried into her personal life, but because of the natural way she shared pieces of herself during their conversations. She lived with her grandmother in a small apartment about 20 minutes from the diner. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19, leaving her responsible for her younger brother Marcus, who was now serving in the military overseas. She worked at the diner during the day and cleaned office buildings 3 nights a week to save money for school. Her goal was to finish her bachelor's degree within the next 2 years and then pursue a master's in special education. Despite the challenges in her life, Keisha maintained an optimism and warmth that seemed to radiate from within. She never complained about her circumstances or expressed resentment about the hand life had dealt her. Instead, she spoke about her future plans with excitement and determination. Emma had blossomed during their daily visits. She looked forward to seeing Keisha each day and had begun bringing small gifts, drawings, interesting rocks she found in their yard, origami figures she learned to make from YouTube videos. Keisha treasured each offering, displaying Emma's artwork prominently in the diner and carrying the rocks and origami in her apron pocket throughout her shift. On Friday of their second week, Marcus arrived at the diner to find Keisha looking unusually tired and stressed. She greeted them with her usual warmth, but he could see the exhaustion in her eyes and the tension in her shoulders. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly while Emma was busy arranging salt and pepper shakers on their table. Keisha hesitated for a moment before answering. "My grandmother fell yesterday and hurt her hip. She's okay, but she can't work for a few weeks. She cleans houses for extra income, and without that money." Keisha trailed off, clearly reluctant to burden him with her problems. "Without that money, it's going to be difficult to make ends meet," Marcus finished gently. Keisha nodded, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't be telling you my problems. Let me get you your usual order." As Keisha walked away, Marcus felt a familiar stirring in his chest. Throughout his adult life, whenever he encountered a problem that money could solve, his first instinct was to write a check. It was simple, efficient, and usually effective. But something about Keisha made him want to do more than just throw money at her situation. Over the weekend, Marcus found himself researching Keisha's grandmother's employer, a small house cleaning service called Spotless Solutions. What he discovered troubled him. The company had a reputation for paying workers below minimum wage, offering no benefits, and requiring employees to provide their own cleaning supplies and transportation. Workers were classified as independent contractors, which meant they had no job security or protection if they were injured on the job. Monday morning found Marcus in his office, but instead of focusing on his usual business concerns, he was on the phone with his personal lawyer, discussing the legal requirements for starting a domestic services company. When he and Emma arrived at the diner for lunch, Marcus had made a decision that would surprise everyone, including himself. "Keisha," he said as she approached their table, "I have a business proposition for you." Keisha looked puzzled, but intrigued. "A business proposition? I'm starting a domestic services company, and I need someone to help me run it. Someone who understands people, who cares about treating workers fairly, and who has the intelligence and integrity to help me build something good. I'd like you to consider being my partner in this venture." Keisha stared at him in stunned silence for a long moment. "Mr. Wellington, I don't understand. I'm a waitress who's still working on her college degree. I don't know anything about running a business." "You know about treating people with respect and dignity," Marcus replied. "You know about hard work and dedication. You understand what it's like to struggle financially while trying to improve your situation. Those are exactly the qualifications I need." Emma looked up from her latest drawing, sensing that something important was happening. "Are you going to work with my daddy, Keisha?" "I don't know, sweetie," Keisha said softly, still processing Marcus's offer. "Your daddy just surprised me with a very big question." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "The company would provide fair wages, full benefits, and job training for people in situations like your grandmother's. Workers would be actual employees, not contractors, which means job security and protection. You would help me develop policies that put workers first while still maintaining high standards of service. But why me? Keisha asked. There must be hundreds of people more qualified than I am. Because in 2 weeks of watching you work, I've seen you treat every person who walks through that door with the same respect and kindness, regardless of whether they're ordering the cheapest item on the menu or the most expensive. I've watched you remember details about customers' lives and make each person feel valued. Those aren't skills you can learn in business school. Marcus paused, choosing his next words carefully. I've also watched you see my daughter for who she truly is, not as a problem to be managed or a burden to be tolerated. You have a gift for recognizing the value in people that others might overlook. That's exactly what this business needs. Keisha was quiet for a long time, absently wiping down a table that was already clean. Marcus could see her mind working, weighing the possibilities against the risks. What about my degree? She finally asked. I'm still 2 years away from finishing my bachelor's program. The company would pay for your education as part of your employment package, Marcus said. You could continue your studies while learning the business side of things. Eventually, if you decided you wanted to teach instead, the company would support that transition. Emma had been listening to the conversation with the intense focus she gave to things that truly interested her. Suddenly, she spoke up with a clarity that surprised both adults. Keisha, if you work with my daddy, you could help more people like your cousin Jamal. And your grandma wouldn't have to clean houses anymore if she didn't want to. The simplicity and logic of Emma's observations seemed to cut through Keisha's uncertainty. Marcus watched as something shifted in Keisha's expression, a spark of possibility replacing the doubt that had clouded her features. Could I think about it? Keisha asked. This is a big decision, and I'd like to talk it over with my grandmother. Of course, Marcus replied. Take all the time you need. But I hope you'll seriously consider it. I think we could build something really special together. That evening, Marcus received a call that would change everything. It was Keisha, and her voice was thick with emotion. Mr. Wellington, she said, I went to visit my grandmother in the hospital today, and she told me something I didn't know. She said that for the past 3 years, she's been saving every dollar she could spare to help me finish college. She's been working extra jobs and skipping meals to put money aside for my education. Marcus listened quietly, sensing that Keisha needed to say whatever was on her heart. When I told her about your offer, she started crying. She said it sounded like an answer to prayer she'd been too afraid to voice. She said maybe now she could finally rest a little, knowing that I had an opportunity to build a real future. Keisha paused, and Marcus could hear her taking a deep breath. Mr. Wellington, I don't have a business degree, and I've never run anything bigger than a restaurant section. But if you're willing to teach me, I'm willing to learn. I accept your offer. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction unlike anything he had experienced in his business career. Wonderful, he said. We'll start slowly. You can transition gradually from the diner while we build the foundation of the company together. There's one condition, Keisha added, her voice stronger now. I want my grandmother to be our first employee, if she's interested and when she's well enough. She's been cleaning houses for 30 years, and she deserves to finish her working years with dignity and proper benefits. Absolutely. Marcus agreed without hesitation. In fact, I was hoping you'd suggest that. As Marcus hung up the phone, he realized that this business venture had already succeeded in the most important way possible. It had given hope to people who had worked hard all their lives, but had never been given the opportunity to truly thrive. Emma appeared in his study doorway, already in her pajamas and clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the bright, welcoming lobby of Compassionate Care Services, watching Keisha conduct an orientation session for their newest group of employees. The transformation in her confidence and leadership abilities had been remarkable to witness. The company had started small, with just 5 employees including Keisha's grandmother, Dorothy, who had recovered from her fall and become their most valued team member. Dorothy's decades of experience in house cleaning, combined with her natural wisdom and work ethic, had proven invaluable in developing their training programs and service standards. What set Compassionate Care apart from other cleaning services wasn't just their fair wages and comprehensive benefits package, though those were certainly important. It was their approach to the work itself. Every employee was trained not just in cleaning techniques, but in treating each client's home with respect and understanding the personal nature of the trust being placed in them. Keisha had suggested they specialize in serving families with special needs, elderly clients, and households dealing with illness or disability. Her insight had proven brilliant. These families often struggled to find reliable, compassionate help, and they were willing to pay premium rates for service providers who truly understood their unique challenges. Emma had become an unofficial mascot for the company. She often accompanied Marcus and Keisha to client meetings, and her presence had an unexpected effect. Families with special needs children immediately relaxed when they saw how naturally Keisha interacted with Emma, and how respected Emma felt in the company environment. "Look, Daddy," Emma said now, tugging on Marcus's sleeve and pointing to a bulletin board near Keisha's desk. "My pictures are still up." Indeed, the bulletin board was covered with Emma's artwork, along with thank you notes from grateful clients, photos from company events, and certificates recognizing their employees' achievements. It had become a visual representation of the company culture they had worked so hard to create. The success had exceeded Marcus's wildest expectations. Within 3 months, they had 50 employees and a waiting list of clients. More importantly, they had created a workplace where people felt valued and respected. Employee turnover was virtually non-existent, and word-of-mouth referrals were driving their growth. Marcus had initially planned to be the primary decision-maker with Keisha as his assistant, but he had quickly realized that approach would waste her natural talents. Instead, he had structured the company as a true partnership, with Keisha overseeing all client services and employee relations while he handled the financial and legal aspects of the business. The arrangement had worked beautifully. Keisha's instincts about people were flawless, and her ability to match the right employees with the right clients had resulted in an almost perfect satisfaction rating. Clients regularly requested that their cleaning teams be extended to additional services like organizing, pet care, and light meal preparation. "Mr. Wellington," called out Maria Santos, one of their newest team leaders. "Could you come look at something?" Marcus approached Maria, who was holding a tablet displaying their client feedback system. "What is it?" "Look at this review from Mrs. Patterson," Maria said, her voice filled with excitement. "She says our team didn't just clean her house. They helped her organize her son's therapy materials and created a quiet corner where he can retreat when he feels overwhelmed. She's requesting that we train our other teams in similar adaptations for special needs families." Marcus read the review, feeling a familiar surge of pride. This was exactly the kind of impact he had hoped they would have. Mrs. Patterson's 8-year-old son had autism, much like Emma, and their cleaning team had recognized ways to make his environment more comfortable and functional. "That's wonderful, Maria. Please schedule a meeting with Keisha to discuss developing formal training around special needs accommodations. This could become one of our signature services." As Maria walked away to find Keisha, Marcus reflected on how much his own understanding of business had evolved over the past few months. In his previous ventures, success had been measured purely in financial terms. With compassionate care, success meant something much more meaningful. "Daddy, can I show Keisha my new drawing?" Emma asked, holding up a picture she had been working on while they visited the office. "Of course, sweetheart. I think she's just finishing up with the new employee orientation." They walked over to where Keisha was wrapping up her presentation to a group of 8 new team members. Marcus had observed several of these orientations now, and he was always impressed by Keisha's ability to convey both the practical aspects of the job and the deeper mission of the company. "Remember," Keisha was saying to the group, "we're not just cleaning houses. We're creating spaces where families can thrive. Every family has their own rhythms, their own challenges, their own ways of living. Our job is to support those rhythms, not disrupt them." A young man named Tyler raised his hand. "What if we encounter a situation we're not sure how to handle? Like, what if a client has specific needs we haven't been trained for?" "Excellent question," Keisha replied. "The most important thing is to ask. Most people are happy to explain what works best for their family if you approach the conversation with genuine interest and respect. And remember, you always have backup. Our whole team is here to support each other." Marcus had watched Keisha develop this collaborative approach to problem solving, and It had become one of their strongest competitive advantages. Instead of rigid protocols that didn't account for individual differences, they had built a flexible system that empowered employees to adapt their services to each family's unique needs. After the orientation session, Keisha joined Marcus and Emma in her office. Emma immediately showed her the new drawing, which depicted their office building with all of their employees standing outside, smiling and waving. "This is beautiful, Emma," Keisha said, studying the picture carefully. "I love how you drew everyone with different colored uniforms, but all with happy faces. That's exactly what our company is like, isn't it? Different people working together and enjoying what they do." Emma beamed with pride. Over the months, her confidence had grown tremendously, partly due to her regular interactions with the compassionate care team. She had found her voice in meetings, offering suggestions that were always taken seriously, and had developed friendships with several of the employees who shared her interests in organizing and creating beautiful spaces. "Keisha," Marcus said, "I wanted to update you on the expansion plans. We've had inquiries from 3 other cities about franchising opportunities." Keisha looked up from Emma's drawing with a mixture of excitement and concern. "That's wonderful news, but I want to make sure we don't lose what makes us special. How do we maintain our culture and values if we grow too quickly?" This was exactly the kind of thoughtful question that made Marcus grateful to have Keisha as his partner. Her instincts about protecting what they had built were always sound. "I've been thinking about that too," Marcus replied. "What if we developed a mentorship program? For each new location, we could send one of our experienced team leaders to spend the first 6 months training the local staff, not just in procedures, but in our approach to client care." "I like that idea," Keisha said. "And maybe we could require potential franchise owners to spend time working in our original location first, so they really understand what we're about before they represent our brand." As they continued discussing expansion plans, Marcus marveled at how naturally their partnership had developed. Keisha's people-focused perspective balanced his business acumen perfectly, resulting in decisions that were both profitable and principled. Their conversation was interrupted by Dorothy, who appeared in the doorway with a warm smile and a plate of homemade cookies. "I thought you might be getting hungry," she said, setting the cookies down on Keisha's desk. "And I wanted to tell you both that Mrs. Chun called to thank us again. She said having our team help her organize her father's medications has made such a difference in managing his care at home." Dorothy had become much more than just an employee. She had become the heart of their company culture. Her wisdom, gained through decades of hard work and life experience, had shaped many of their policies and procedures. She had also become a beloved grandmother figure to Emma and a trusted advisor to both Marcus and Keisha. "Grandma Dorothy," Emma said, using the title she had spontaneously adopted for the older woman. "Would you like to see my picture of our company?" "I would love to see it, baby girl," Dorothy replied, settling into a chair next to Emma. As Dorothy admired Emma's artwork, Marcus and Keisha continued their planning discussion, but Marcus found his attention split between business matters and the beautiful family dynamic that had developed around their work. "You know," Keisha said suddenly, "sometimes I can't believe this is real. 6 months ago, I was worried about paying for groceries and textbooks. Now I'm helping to run a company that's making a real difference in people's lives." "And you're still pursuing your degree," Marcus pointed out. "How are your classes going this semester?" "Really well," Keisha replied with enthusiasm. "Having practical experience to relate to my coursework has made such a difference. And knowing that my education is being supported instead of being a financial stress has allowed me to really focus on learning." 1 year after that first chance encounter at Miller's Diner, Marcus found himself standing in the grand ballroom of Seattle's most prestigious hotel, but the event taking place was unlike any corporate gathering he had ever hosted. Tonight was the first annual Compassionate Care Services Appreciation Dinner, celebrating not just their business success, but the lives that had been transformed along the way. Emma stood beside him at the entrance, greeting guests with the confidence of someone who had truly found her place in the world. She wore a beautiful blue dress that matched her eyes, and her hair was adorned with a small butterfly clip that Keisha had given her for the occasion. In her hands, she carried a special photo album documenting the company's first year, filled with pictures she had taken of employees, clients, and special moments. Daddy, look. Mrs. Patterson is here with Danny, Emma said excitedly, pointing toward a woman entering with a young boy who was clutching a toy airplane. Marcus smiled as he watched Danny Patterson, who had autism like Emma, navigate the crowded room with remarkable ease. The transformation in the boy over the past year had been extraordinary. His family credited their compassionate care team not just with maintaining their home, but with creating an environment where Danny could thrive. The evening was a celebration of stories like Danny's. As guests filled the ballroom, Marcus could see the faces of families whose lives had been touched by their services. There was Mrs. Chun, whose elderly father had been able to remain in his own home thanks to their specialized care. The Rodriguez family, who had struggled to maintain their household while caring for twin daughters with special needs, now had the support they needed to focus on their children rather than constantly worrying about domestic concerns. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was visible in Keisha herself. She moved through the room with the grace and confidence of a natural leader, checking on details, greeting guests, and managing the evening's program with expertise that belied her young age. She wore an elegant navy dress that Marcus had insisted the company purchase for the occasion, and her warm smile was the same one that had first captured Emma's trust in that small diner 12 months ago. "Good evening, everyone." Keisha's voice carried clearly through the sound system as she took the podium. "Welcome to our celebration of what can happen when people choose to see the best in each other." Marcus listened from his table, surrounded by Emma, Dorothy, and several longtime employees who had become like family. He marveled at how naturally Keisha commanded the room, her genuine warmth making even the formal setting feel intimate and welcoming. "A year ago," Keisha continued, "I was working at Miller's Diner, dreaming about someday becoming a teacher, but wondering if I would ever have the resources to make that dream reality. I thought I understood what it meant to serve others, to make a difference in people's lives through small acts of kindness." She paused, her eyes finding Marcus and Emma in the audience. "But I learned something important this year. Sometimes the acts of kindness that seem small in the moment turn out to be the seeds of something much bigger than we ever imagined." Marcus thought back to that first day when Emma had been overwhelmed at school, and they had wandered into Miller's Diner seeking quiet. He remembered watching Keisha connect with his daughter so effortlessly, seeing something in Emma that others often missed. He had no idea then that this chance encounter would reshape both of their lives so completely. "Tonight, I want to share some of the stories that make our work meaningful," Keisha continued. "But first, I want to introduce you to someone who taught me the most important lesson of this entire journey." Emma's eyes widened as Keisha gestured toward their table. "Emma Wellington, would you please join me up here?" Marcus felt a surge of pride as his daughter stood up confidently and walked to the front of the room. A year ago, Emma would have been overwhelmed by this much attention and activity. Tonight, she seemed to draw energy from the crowd's warmth. "Emma," Keisha said, kneeling down to her level despite her formal dress, "you were the first person who taught me that everyone deserves to be seen for who they truly are, not what makes them different. Would you like to help me tell everyone about our company?" Emma nodded enthusiastically and took the microphone with the poise of someone much older. "Our company helps families feel safe and happy in their homes," she said clearly. "We have the nicest people who work here, and they understand that everyone's family is different, and that's what makes them special." The room erupted in warm applause, and Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. His daughter, who had once hidden under her desk during a fire drill, was now confidently addressing a room full of adults and articulating the mission they had all worked to build. "Thank you, Emma," Keisha said, accepting the microphone back. "That's exactly right. We exist to support families in all their beautiful, complicated, unique forms." Over the next hour, Keisha shared story after story of lives touched by their services. She talked about Maria, who had been promoted from team member to regional supervisor and was now pursuing her own business degree. She spoke about James, a former construction worker who had joined their team after an injury ended his previous career and discovered he had a gift for working with elderly clients dealing with dementia. She highlighted their scholarship program, which had helped 12 employees pursue higher education over the past year. She discussed their mental health support program, developed after they realized that many of their employees were dealing with personal challenges that affected their ability to provide their best care. Marcus was particularly moved when Keisha talked about Dorothy's contribution to their training program. Mrs. Dorothy Washington has taught all of us that dignity isn't something you earn through wealth or education, Keisha said. Dignity is something every person possesses, and our job is to honor that dignity in everything we do. Dorothy stood up briefly to acknowledge the applause, her eyes bright with pride and emotion. Marcus knew that working for compassionate care had given Dorothy something she had never experienced in her decades of labor: respect, recognition, and the knowledge that her wisdom and experience were truly valued. The evening's highlight came when Keisha announced their expansion plans. We're excited to share that Compassionate Care Services will be opening locations in Portland, San Francisco, and Denver over the next 18 months. But we're not just expanding geographically. We're also launching the Compassionate Care Foundation, dedicated to providing support and resources for families dealing with special needs, elderly care, and disability services. Marcus had been working with his lawyers and financial advisors for months to structure the foundation properly. They would provide grants for families who couldn't afford specialized care, fund research into best practices for inclusive services, and offer scholarships for students pursuing careers in special education, social work, and related fields. But the foundation had been Keisha's idea. She had approached Marcus 3 months earlier with a passionate argument that their success created an obligation to help families who couldn't afford their services. Her vision had been both ambitious and practical: use their expertise and resources to create systemic change, not just serve individual clients. As the formal program concluded and guests mingled over dessert, Marcus found himself in conversation with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a developmental pediatrician who had become one of their most valued referral sources. "Marcus," Dr. Mitchell said, "I have to tell you, what you and Keisha have built here is extraordinary. I've been working with special needs families for 20 years, and I've never seen a service provider that understands their needs so completely." "It's all Keisha's vision," Marcus replied honestly. "I just provided the resources to make it happen." Dr. Mitchell shook her head. "It's more than that. You created a partnership that leveraged both of your strengths. Keisha has the natural empathy and understanding, but you have the business acumen and resources to scale that impact. Together, you've created something neither of you could have accomplished alone." As the evening wound down, Marcus found Keisha and Emma sitting together at a quiet table, looking through Emma's photo album of the past year. Emma was explaining each picture to Keisha, who listened with the same patient attention she had shown that first day in the diner. "You two look like you're having an important conversation," Marcus said, joining them. "Emma was just telling me about her favorite memories from this year," Keisha replied. "She has such a good eye for capturing special moments." Emma looked up at her father with bright, excited eyes. "Daddy, I want to ask you something important." "What is it, sweetheart?" "Next year, when I'm 8, can I have a job at our company? Not a big job, but maybe I could help organize things or draw pictures for people who are sad." Marcus exchanged a glance with Keisha, both of them touched by Emma's desire to contribute to their mission. Over the past year, Emma had indeed helped in small ways, organizing supplies, creating artwork for the office, and even accompanying them on some client visits where her presence had provided comfort to other children with special needs. "I think we can arrange something appropriate for an 8-year-old, Marcus said solemnly. "What kind of job title would you like?" Emma considered this seriously. "Chief Happiness Officer," she said finally. "Because that's what Keisha does, and that's what I want to learn how to do." Keisha laughed, a sound full of joy and love. "I think Chief Happiness Officer is a perfect title for you, Emma. And I promise to teach you everything I know about helping people feel happy and safe." As they gathered their things to leave, Marcus realized that this evening had marked more than just a business milestone. It had celebrated the creation of something he had never thought possible: a chosen family bound together not by blood or legal obligation, but by shared values and genuine care for each other's well-being. The drive home was quiet, with Emma dozing in the back seat, exhausted from the excitement of the evening. Marcus found himself thinking about the year ahead, the expansion plans, the foundation launch, the continued growth of their services. But Mostly, he thought about the unexpected gift that had come from a simple decision to follow his daughter's request for somewhere quiet to eat lunch. That gift wasn't just the successful business they had built, though he was proud of what they had accomplished. It wasn't even the lives they had touched, though that impact meant everything to him. The real gift was the discovery that success could be redefined, that wealth could be a tool for creating good in the world, and that the most valuable relationships were built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and genuine love. As they pulled into their driveway, Emma stirred in the back seat. "Daddy," she said sleepily, "this was the best day ever." Marcus smiled, knowing that Emma was right. But, more than that, he knew that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to build on what they had created, to extend their circle of compassion even wider, and to continue proving that business at its best was really about creating space for everyone to flourish. The young waitress who had shown kindness to his daughter had become his business partner, his friend, and a beloved member of their family. The quiet diner lunch that was meant to calm an overwhelmed child had become the foundation for a company that was changing lives across their city. And the father who had once measured success only in financial terms had discovered that the most meaningful achievements were measured in smiles, in dignity restored, in dreams made possible, and in the simple but profound recognition of everyone's inherent worth. As Marcus tucked Emma into bed that night, she said something that perfectly captured the magic of their journey. "Daddy, remember when we first met Keisha and she said my sugar packets looked like little white dominoes? I think our whole company is like that now. Each person we help makes the next person easier to help, and it just keeps going and going." Marcus kissed his daughter goodnight, marveling at her wisdom and grateful beyond measure for the series of small kindnesses that had created such beautiful, lasting change in all their lives. Marcus nodded, remembering the scholarship program they had established not just for Keisha, but for any employee who wanted to pursue further education. It was one of many benefits that had helped them attract and retain exceptional people. "Daddy," Emma said, looking up from her conversation with Dorothy, "when I grow up, I want to work here too. Can I be the person who makes sure everyone feels happy and safe?" Marcus and Keisha exchanged a glance, both touched by Emma's declaration and the mature way she had described what she saw as the company's mission. "I think you'd be excellent at that job," Keisha told Emma seriously. "You already have a gift for understanding what people need to feel comfortable." As the afternoon wound down and they prepared to leave the office, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. What had started as a simple attempt to find a quiet lunch spot for his daughter had evolved into something far more meaningful than he could have imagined. They had built more than a successful business. They had created a community of people who genuinely cared about each other and took pride in their work. They had proven that a company could be both profitable and compassionate, that treating employees well was not just the right thing to do, but also the smart thing to do. Most importantly, they had shown Emma that business could be a force for good in the world, that success meant more than accumulating wealth, and that the greatest achievements came from lifting others up along the way. "Daddy, is Keisha going to be okay now?" Marcus lifted his daughter onto his lap, marveling at her intuitive understanding of the situation. "Yes, sweetheart. Keisha is going to be just fine. And she's going to help us make sure lots of other people are okay too." Emma snuggled against his chest, content with this answer. "Good," she said simply. "Keisha makes people feel happy. She should get to do that for her job." As Marcus tucked Emma into bed that night, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed in just 2 weeks. He had started this journey simply trying to find a quiet place for his daughter to have lunch. Instead, he had discovered something he hadn't even realized he was looking for, a sense of purpose that went beyond building wealth for its own sake. Tomorrow, he would begin the process of creating a company built on the principles of dignity, respect, and opportunity. But tonight, he was simply grateful for the young woman who had shown his daughter such kindness and, in doing so, had reminded him of what truly mattered in life. Lunch in a way that had nothing to do with food and everything to do with watching his daughter blossom under the attention of someone who truly understood her. As he and Emma prepared to leave for their third visit to Miller's Diner, Marcus realized that this young waitress had already given his family something invaluable. The question now was whether he could find a way to give something back that would be equally meaningful to her. Emma bounced excitedly in the passenger seat as they drove through the city, already planning what she would draw for Keisha today and which of her small toys she might bring to show her. For the first time in months, Emma was displaying the kind of excited anticipation that most children her age experienced regularly, but that had been rare in her carefully structured world. Marcus found himself hoping that their third visit would be as magical as the first two, but he was also beginning to formulate a plan that might extend Keisha's influence in Emma's life far beyond these daily lunch visits. "We'll see, sweetheart," he replied, but he was already planning to return the next day. As they drove home, Emma continued humming the tune Keisha had shared with her, and Marcus found himself thinking about the young woman who had shown his daughter such unexpected kindness. He realized he knew nothing about her beyond her first name and her job at the diner, but she had somehow managed to give Emma something that all of his money and resources had never been able to provide: the simple joy of feeling completely normal and accepted. That night, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she said something that would stay with him for weeks to come. "Daddy, Keisha didn't look at me the way other people do. She looked at me the way you do." Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead and wondered how a young waitress at a small diner had managed to see his daughter so clearly when so many others seemed to look right through her.